Hi and welcome to the icy Finland. Last year's summer was on a Tuesday, but now it's June and the first minor heat wave is already behind us. Summer is not simply knocking on the door, but has already crushed it into tiny pieces, so it's high time to prepare for summer activities. The door is not the only object in our household exposed to the whims of weather. As you can see, this step at the back door is not in a good shape. It's quite a senior one, and in addition it was probably not made of impregnated wood, which could stand moisture. This door leads from the kitchen to the garden, so it's in use a lot in the summer. In order to have a safe access to the backyard, this step has to be rebuilt. I purchased some impregnated lumber at a building material store. It is pressure treated, which means that a protective chemical is taken deep into the wood at high pressure to make it last longer. The initial design of the step was like this: a relatively simple box with some supporting elements inside. After cutting a few parts to size, I made a test to check how much the top boards will bend. Well, quite a lot, I have to say, so I slightly changed the design and added extra support to the middle. I want no screw heads to be exposed on the outside, and I have no pocket hole jig, so the best option is to assemble it by attaching additional structural elements using screws from the inside. Gluing might not be the best option because of the wide temperature range. I was considering a lighter design as well, using less lumber, but eventually picked the more rigid one. A cut list with all the details makes everything way easier. After making careful measurements, the lumber is first cut to approximate size using a circular saw. The reason for that is that long boards cannot be handled on the table saw. After cutting all the boards, it's useful to double check and then number each one for easier identification and assembly. Making sure that the miter gauge is at a 90-degree angle compared to the blade is essential when making crosscuts. Cutting with the circular saw leaves a rough end, so first one end of all the boards is straightened. To fit the front and sides of the top frame together, the miter gauge has to be set to 45-degree angle to the blade. Measure and mark the size of the sideboards. It is wise to make it a bit oversized. After making the cut, check the size and shave off a bit if necessary. The material always must be cut with the outer side facing up to avoid chipping on the exposed edge. The difference can clearly be seen here. Therefore, it's not enough just to flip the board over to cut the other end of the front, but the miter gauge must be flipped instead. Optionally, the other miter slot could also be used in such a setup. Check for square to ensure a good fit. A miter gauge extension helps to make the length of the rest of the top parts consistent. Mark the position of the stop block on the extension. Again, it is recommended to make the board slightly oversized. You can always cut off more if needed, but you are in trouble if the board ends up too short. Drawing a reference mark on the extension helps to make adjustments to the stop block. The setup is okay now, so we can cut all the parts to the exact same size. Internal supporting parts are cut the same way. Corners of vertical front and side panels are going to be joined seamlessly. One end of all 4 boards is bevel cut at 45-degree angle by tilting the blade of the table saw, plus a miter gauge extension is used again. My son gave me a helping hand to fasten the stop block. To make the smallest parts, which hold the wall structure together, wide boards have to be resolved first. It is straightforward and needs no measurements, because only a board must be placed tightly between the blade and the rib fence. The result is a timber with square cross-section. It turned out to be unnecessary, but to stay on the safe side, holes were drilled to avoid splitting. Finally, it's time for assembly. First layer of lower frame is laid down on a flat surface with the joiner sticks in the corners. Work slowly when you drive the screws in and make sure that the joints are flush and there are no gaps. Don't worry, if you make any mistake, you can easily fix it by undoing the screw and repositioning. Assembly of second layer is much easier, since the first one is a good reference. Just put the boards on top and fasten with screws. Now comes the top surface. Lay the 4 pieces of the frame down upside down and ensure that all are square. Then put the bottom part on top of that. Check that the overhang on both sides are equal, plus the back is flush. When you feel that it's okay, position the pieces which hold the whole thing together and drive in the screws. It's somehow satisfying to see as the whole thing takes shape. Adding the floor beams is one of the last steps, just positioned by the eye, as chances are that any random visitor will not ask for a caliper and complain about minor differences. The last pieces of the puzzle are the elements supporting the inner edge of the frame and the floor beams. After I noticed that 2 joiners are conflicting, it was easy to reposition. It's a good example how easy it is to fix any issue. The last part which finds its place is the middle support. It goes in the same way as the side ones. Finally completed, the backyard is ready for barbecue parties and of course a good glass of wine. Cheers and thank you for watching.